This nibble originally aired on RSBANDB Update, episode 861, Christmas Crits, RuneScape's 2021 PvM meta. All right, so let's just unpack the winners of 2021 then, and we're going to do the mid-tier section, the high-end section, and I'm going to ask each of you, Thaxi and David, where did we start in 2021 and where did we end? So let's do the mid-tier. Let's start with you, David. Where did mid-tier PvM start with?
Ranged, because back criminal bolts are real good. Ruby bolts hit hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You agree with that, Thaxi?
I do. I think melee was doing very well too. Like for people that truly enjoy melee and had trained a lot of melee, like had got to mid tier, have 500 mil worth of gear in melee. I think melee was up there, but it's just challenging to melee a lot of PvM. So, in terms of like learning new bosses and getting into PvM, I think range, like David's saying, Magic was struggling a little bit.
All right,
at all tiers.
And now focusing on the end of the year, 2021 mid-range PvM, who wins?
So I kind of forgot about tier 88 weapons when I said ranged. So if you're assuming size mix, then I felt like that was outside of mid-range price-wise, since they're like a bill almost, getting close to there. But factoring in tier 88, I would say Magic. The argument I had for range was just that it's still, in my opinion, the easiest style to get competent at, to where you're like doing a reasonable percentage of the maximal output. Whereas I think even with mid-tier stuff, Magic is still trickier to use. It's very clunky on Revolution to use Magic. And ranged honestly is, especially now that like they're even removing stuff like the auto you would get with Tendril. Like ranged is very, very easy to use with Revolution. And so I think that there's an argument for range still, because Ascensions are kind of expensive and take up the bulk of the like 500 mil budget we're giving it. But I don't know.
Well,
if you I
think you could buy a Noxbow. Like I think mid-tier range right now might not even include Ascensions. I think it might include a Noxbow or even a Decimation. Sure. And yeah, I think because the arrows I think are pretty good, and you can absolutely bring splintering arrows and it's 2 to 3 weeks, right, to unlock things from. If you already have, like, if you're not getting the wave bonuses, it's a couple of weeks to unlock things from Shattered Worlds. And so I think range, that's kind of where we're at right now. Is Ruby bolts are still pretty good, and you can use, you've got options for that. Even like the thing that Magic has going for it right now, as like the comparison, is that Greater Concentrated Blast is so incredibly powerful if you're not switching. Like range, I absolutely agree. Like you can mimic on range everything that the high tier people are doing with relatively few differences, right? You can, like, with the exception of like some very expensive Essence of Finality editions, you can do pretty much the same rotations and setup. You have to be a little careful with Revolution on range, because Snipe does need to be cancelled. Otherwise, you do waste a lot of it. Like, Snipe is a kind of a questionable ranged ability.
You could also just not use Snipe, and that's okay.
You get on a Revolution bar, you run the risk without Snipe of hitting the end of your bar a lot faster. You need to have a wider Revolution window. So Snipe is the question. But in terms of like other than a Snipe, and just which for anybody who's curious what I'm talking about, Snipe takes 1.8 seconds to fire. If you queue an ability while Snipe is going, you cancel it after 2.4 seconds exactly. Actually, I think it takes 2.4 to fire. Otherwise you lose a tick. It's just because it's a channeled ability, you lose a tick afterwards. And if you want to, like, that's a ton of damage lost every 10 seconds. Range right now still has Criminal Bolts, and so either Criminal Bolts or if you have the arrows, that's what I'm going to say is mid-tier for range. Still doing great. Greater Concentrated Blast is so ridiculously broken overpowered that I would even be willing to say that for like mid-tier PvM, if you've got anything above tier 80, I would say you're probably putting out similar damage to a lot of range. People using like tier 90s.
So what's it going to be? Major ranged?
I think you could use either and be fine. Honestly, like that's what I would end up with. I think Mage was the winner of the year in terms of Mage. Mid-tier players gained more from Mage because Greater Concentrated Blast is disgusting.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying
Chins
is that...
are still really good. If you like Elite Dungeons, Chins are still great.
So we started where mid-tier 2021 ranged was the be-all and end-all. But at the end of 2021, it could be either. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's probably Magic, honestly. If you have the ports weapons, for sure.
If you have tier 88 ports weapons and you have Greater Concentrated Blast, it's the winner. It is the best for 500 mil. Yeah.
All right, high end. What was our friend at the high end?
Yeah, I mean, ranged by far the best. Nothing else was close, and now Magic by far the best.
Gricka was busted. Gricka was nerfed. Magic Carapac now exists. Even without the Fractured Staff of Armadillo, it would be pretty close. I mean, again, we've spent a lot of time talking about this. I should note the Fractured Staff of Armadillo cannot use Greater Concentrated Blast. You kind of have to have a switch there to use both of these things. So both of these are huge power creep. They do not overlap,
and that's good.
Yes. And you can't even, because the Fractured Staff Armadillo fires a main hand auto attack, you can't even put it in a Essence of Finality and use it with a Wand and Orb to use Greater Ricochet, to use Greater Concentrated Blast, because your autos do significantly less damage when fired from a wand instead of a staff. Yeah. And still costs the same amount of runes, which is wild. So there is a trade-off there. They don't overlap perfectly. You have to do a lot of playing around, but if you're feeling sweaty, Magic, and it's not close, is the best combat style right now.
Yeah.
Ranged people are still figuring it out.
All right. I mean, I think ranged is still really good. We haven't really talked about the in between. If you can afford, if you have 5 bill but not 12, then ranged is still incredible. I mean, I think there are a lot of players
still better. Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm like that. I think a lot of times.
I think a lot of players have gotten 1/3 H die, but are nowhere close to 15.
Okay. Let me just rephrase this then. What are you guys using going into 2022 primarily?
I like range. I will always be using range.
David?
If I wanted to do maximum damage, I would be on Magic.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I just PvM on my Iron Man. I don't have Magic gear, but as soon as I do, I'll switch to Magic.
Okay.
And then on my main, when I PvM on my main, I use Mage. That's once a month or less.
All right. You can find full episodes of RSBANDB Update right here on this YouTube channel. If you found this video useful or just enjoyed it, like and subscribe, or leave a comment.